Today I'm going to tell you how life is for the youth in the United States compared to here in Sweden. I will look into the differences between youth depending on which ethnicity, sexual orientation, or gender they are born into. When I first started my research around the differences between Sweden and USA, I found the abortion law strikingly different. Through the entire country, you can find a lack of social acceptance regarding abortions, and occasionally you can even find people protesting outside of abortion clinics. The abortion laws in USA varied in the different states, and in 11 of them they have banned abortion, in some states more thoroughly than others, which is weird because abortion can be seen as healthcare. Banning abortion has many negative consequences. For example, young motherhood, where the mothers are children themselves, and several other negative effects also take shape when abortion is illegal. Getting pregnant as a teenage girl is something that impacts your entire life, and even if you don't get pregnant, it's still something that affects you a lot. In Sweden, on the other hand, we have access to free abortion if you're under the age of 18. In Sweden, the residents are also more accepting of abortion, and there are a much lower percentual amount of people in Sweden that are against abortion. Even though this is something that mostly concerns girls, it also affects boys because they become fathers at a very young age. The reason for strict laws against abortion I connect to the high percent of religious Americans. USA in general is a much more religious country than Sweden, and therefore, depending on which state you look into, it can be everything between 33% at the lowest up to 77% of the population that identify themselves as religious. The religion in Sweden is not something that plays as big a role in the society, and Sweden are known as the least religious country in the Western world. Adolescents that are born into a religious family or live in a society where religion is important get influenced by that in many different ways. As I already pointed out, it affects your ability to get an abortion, but it also affects you in ways of thinking and what you morally think is right or wrong. Believe is right or wrong. Depending on which echelon of religious your family is, religion affects your upbringing on different levels. That meaning that the upbringing could be very diverse from how many Swedes' upbringing look like, because in Sweden many people identify themselves as non-confessional. The religion is also something that can have a huge impact on you if you're born with a different sexual orientation than straight. Gay marriage is something Sweden have legalized, and USA are on the same level as us since June 2015 when the law was permanent. So, if you look at gay privilege from a juristic perspective, Sweden and USA are on the same level, do we both have legalized same-sex marriage. Although, as I mentioned, the higher existence of religion can have an impact, a negative influence, leading to a higher lack of accepting for the gay community in USA than Sweden. The reason is because some people that are very religious are not accepting of another sexual orientation than straight. At last, I'm going to make a comparison if I was born into a native family in Sweden versus USA. In USA, many Native Americans are born and continues to live on a reservation ranch. And in Sweden, a large amount of our native people are residents high up in the northern parts of Sweden. The life of a youngster as a native Swede compared to a Native American are very different from each other. On the Native American reservation ranch, they are struggling with many difficulties. The main problem they have is poverty, and that is in many ways also the basis to their other problems. On the reservation, other difficulties they're struggling with is a high percentual amount of people suffering from depression, leading to a high number of suicide. They are also struggling with alcohol and drug addictions, a high rate of crime, and low education, meaning that many students don't graduate. These serious amount of problems depict a Native American society and making the reservation a mostly bad place to live on. If I was born a Native American on a reservation, the odds that I today would struggle with one or several of these difficulties are high. If I, on the other hand, was born a native Swede, the odds are not the same. That is because in the native Swede society, they do not have alarming high amount of people suffering and struggling with those same difficulties they have on the reservation ranch. With that said, I would unfortunately have a much bigger chance to a happy life if I was born a native Swede. To sum up, I now understand that two countries that you may think are very similar to each other because they are both equally developed, like USA and Sweden, the living conditions for the youth, depending on which ethnicity, gender, and sexual orientation, can vary very much between the countries. Thank you.